Girlfriend going on vacation with her male best friend without me. How should I respond to this? New post following the previous one. Hi all. I hope everyone is doing well. I've been thinking about this for quite some time now, and I feel like I need to get it all out. For those of you who have been following my posts, this is a follow-up to a situation that has been weighing on me. It's about my girlfriend and her best friend, who happens to be a guy. If you want the full backstory, please check my previous post. A lot has happened since then, and I feel like my thoughts are finally coming together. Let me start by saying this: honesty is a complicated thing. When I first confronted her about certain things, I expected defensiveness or excuses. Instead, what I got was slow, steady revelations. She didn't exactly hide anything from me, but it felt like peeling an onion layer after layer, each one stinging my eyes a little more. She admitted everything I was wondering about her best friend. She told me he had confessed his feelings for her in the past and that she rejected him. To her credit, she didn't shy away from the details. She was upfront about how awkward it was, how he had struggled with his feelings but eventually moved past them. Or so she said. Her best friend himself, let's call him Ethan, has also come clean about a few things. In a conversation that felt both strained and surreal, he admitted to lying about certain things in the past. One of the lies was small but still jarring. He claimed he never liked her romantically, but that wasn't true. He confessed to me that he did like her actually, liked her, and that he only gave up after she turned him down. Hearing that from him, rather than her, hit differently. There was a kind of tension in the air when he told me, like he wanted to make sure I understood what he had given up by staying her friend. I'm trying to take it all in stride because I trust her. She's made it clear that she sees him as nothing more than a friend. But then there are my own friends. They have their opinions, strong ones, at that. Almost every single one of them has said, in no uncertain terms, that I should be cautious. Watch your back, they say. Keep an eye on that guy. It's like they think I'm standing in the middle of a field with a storm brewing, oblivious to the lightning cracking above me. They don't trust him, not one bit. And honestly, I can't blame them. Ethan doesn't exactly make it easy for me to like him. He's civil, but barely. He tolerates me when we're all together, but it's obvious he doesn't want me there. The air gets thick with unspoken words whenever I show up, like I'm an intruder in their private world. He's told me outright that he's cool with the three of us hanging out if she invites him, but when it comes to one-on-one time, that's off limits. He doesn't want me tagging along, and she doesn't seem to mind. It's this dynamic that leaves me in a constant state of second-guessing. I keep telling myself that they're just friends, best friends, even and that's fine. People can have best friends of the opposite gender, right? I mean, it's 2024. This shouldn't even be a thing. And yet, it is. Every little interaction, every shared laugh, every inside joke between them, it all plays on a loop in my head, picking at my insecurities like an itch I can't scratch. She's reassured me countless times that there's nothing to worry about. And for the most part, I believe her. I know she cares about me, probably more than she cares about him. But then I think about the history they share, the years of friendship, the memories, the way he knew her long before I did. That kind of bond isn't easy to compete with, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't bother me. There's one thing that keeps me holding on to my trust, her honesty. She hasn't hidden anything from me. If anything, she's been almost too honest. She's told me about the confession, about how awkward it was when Ethan admitted his feelings for her. She even told me about the time he bought her flowers on Valentine's Day before she gently reminded him they were just friends. She says he's over it now, and I want to believe her. But the question that keeps me up at night is this: can feelings like that really disappear? Or do they just get buried, waiting for the right moment to resurface? What complicates things even more is the way she defends him. Whenever my friends voice their concerns, she brushes them off, saying they don't understand their friendship. He's like a brother to me, she says, but the way Ethan looks at her sometimes makes me doubt that. He's polite to her, attentive in a way that borders on romantic. And while she doesn't seem to notice, I can't help but wonder if it's deliberate, if he's hoping she'll notice someday. To make matters worse, I've started to notice little things. Small details that wouldn't mean much on their own but together paint a picture I can't ignore. Like how she always laughs just a little louder at his jokes. Or how her eyes light up when she talks about him. It's not that she doesn't do those things with me, she does, but there's a difference. A subtle shift in the way she carries herself around him, like she's letting a part of herself shine that I don't always get to see. And then there's the issue of boundaries or the lack thereof. When we're in the lounge and Ethan shows up, she'll casually ask me to give them space. It's not a request, really. It's more of a polite dismissal. Hey, could you let us catch up for a bit? She'll say, as if it's the most normal thing in the world. And I go along with it because I don't want to seem controlling. But every time I leave them alone, a knot tightens in my chest. What are they talking about that I can't be part of? What inside jokes or shared memories are they building without me? I don't want to be the jealous boyfriend. I don't want to be the guy who dictates who his girlfriend can and can't be friends with. But it's hard to ignore the uneasy feeling that's been building inside me. It's like I'm standing at the edge of something, peering into the unknown, and I can't tell if I'm overthinking or if there's really something to worry about. At the end of the day, I love her. That's the one thing I'm sure of. She's kind, thoughtful, and everything I've ever wanted in a partner. But loving her also means trusting her, and right now, I'm trying to figure out where that trust ends and my insecurities begin. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's everything. I guess time will tell. I'm still a little confused about how much time she spends with him compared to her other friends. Actually, confused might not be the right word, maybe unnerved fits better. It's not just the quantity of time they spend together but the quality of it. She doesn't see her other friends this often, and when she does, it's more of a casual, let's grab coffee or see you at the party kind of thing. With him, it's different. It's scheduled. It's routine. And it's oddly intimate. What really gets me is how easily she rearranges her schedule for him. Sure, she's willing to cancel on him to spend time with me, and she does it without hesitation when I ask. But when he's around, especially in the lounge of our dorm, she suddenly becomes territorial. She'll casually ask me for space, saying, "Hey, could you give us a minute? We just need to catch up." It's always framed so innocuously, as though I'd be unreasonable to question it. And I never do, not out loud, at least. But every time it happens, I can feel the words bubbling up in my chest, choking me with questions I don't know how to ask. It's not just the lounge, either. She visits him at work sometimes, which I've tried to convince myself is normal. Plenty of people drop by to see friends while they're on shift, right? But it's the frequency that bothers me. Once or twice is one thing, but she's gone to see him more times this semester than she's gone to the library. She's even been to his house a couple of times, which, again, I've tried to rationalize. But then she dropped the bombshell, they've met each other's parents. Meeting parents is significant. It's something you do when someone is important in your life, not just a casual friend, but someone you prioritize. She told me about it casually, as though it was no big deal, but it felt like a big deal. The way she described it, she and Ethan's mom hit it off instantly. "She's so sweet," my girlfriend had said, her eyes lighting up as she recounted their conversation. I couldn't help but notice how she smiled, as if meeting his mom had been a highlight of her week. I haven't even met his parents. For all the time I've spent trying to understand their dynamic, it still feels like there are parts of their relationship that I'm not privy to, parts that belong solely to them. Then there's the bullying. She's never been a bullying kind of person. In fact, when we first started dating, I suggested it as a fun date idea, and she laughed, saying, "I'm terrible at bowling. It's just not my thing." Yet somehow, it's become a weekly tradition for her and Ethan. He has a car, so they drive to the lanes together every Thursday evening. She talks about it like it's the most natural thing in the world, but every time she mentions it, I feel that same tightness in my chest. Why is it so easy for her to make time for him, to pick up new hobbies with him, when she brushed off the same idea with me? I try not to let it get to me because she and I do spend a lot of time together. In fact, our daily routine is one of the things I love most about our relationship. We eat all our meals together. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner in those moments are sacred to me. It's not just about the food, it's the way we sit across from each other, talking about our day, sharing inside jokes, and making plans for the weekend. Every night, before heading back to our separate rooms, we spend a little extra time together, savoring the last few minutes before we say good night. It's comforting, grounding, and it reminds me of how much I care about her. But then there's Ethan. She hangs out with him 4 or 5 days a week, doing things that seem special. It's not just lounging around or grabbing coffee. They're activities. Bowling. Road trips. Watching movies at his house. Visiting each other's parents. It's almost as if she has 2 relationships running parallel to each other, one with me and one with him. And while I know which one she says is more important, the sheer amount of time and effort she puts into their friendship makes me wonder if the lines are as clear to her as they are to me. Sometimes, I try to imagine myself in her shoes. What if I had a female best friend who I spent this much time with? Would she be okay with it? Would she shrug it off the way I'm trying to? I don't think so. I think she'd have questions, real, pointed questions, and I wouldn't blame her. But I also know that if I did have a friend like that, I'd make an effort to include her. I'd make sure she felt like part of the dynamic, not an outsider. And that's the part that stings the most. When she asks me to give them space or tells me that she doesn't want me tagging along to their weekly bowling nights, it feels like she's drawing a line in the sand. A line that says, "This is ours, not yours." I've brought it up to her once or twice, not in an accusatory way, but out of genuine curiosity. Each time, she reassures me that there's nothing to worry about. "Ethan's like a brother to me," she says. "You know I love you." And I do believe her, but the doubt still lingers. It's not that I think she's lying, it's that I don't know if she fully understands how this looks from the outside. To me. To my friends. To anyone who doesn't already know the full context. Speaking of friends, they've been vocal about their opinions. "It's weird," one of them told me. "No one spends this much time with someone of the opposite gender unless there's something more going on." Another friend was even blunter, "You are being too trusting." She's either naive or deliberately ignoring how this looks. Their words echo in my head long after the conversations end, feeding the quiet storm of uncertainty that's been building inside me. I keep trying to remind myself that trust is the foundation of any relationship. She's done nothing to break that trust, and I know she cares about me deeply. But the questions remain. Why does she carve out so much time for him? Why does she insist on keeping certain parts of their friendship separate from me? And why does it feel like, no matter how much time we spend together, there's a part of her that I can never fully reach? At the end of the day, I'm left with a mix of emotions: love, confusion, and an ache I can't quite name. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I also can't ignore the nagging feeling that there's more to this than meets the eye. Maybe I'm overthinking. Or maybe I'm not thinking enough. Either way, I can't shake the feeling that this story is far from over. The only thing that still confuses me is why the 2 of them want to go on a vacation to New York and Boston together, just the 2 of them without anyone else. The idea of it feels strange. Even as I try to rationalize it, turning it over in my mind, I can't make sense of why this is their plan. New York alone is one thing. It's close enough to our college that a trip there doesn't feel like a monumental undertaking. But then Boston? She didn't even mention that part until a few days after she initially brought up New York. It's like it was an afterthought, or maybe something she wasn't sure she wanted to tell me about. When she finally did tell me, it was almost as if she was trying to get ahead of any concerns I might have. "Oh, by the way, we're thinking of stopping in Boston, too," she had said, in a tone so casual it almost felt rehearsed. "It's just an extra couple of days. Nothing big." I remember staring at her, unsure of what to say. She looked so calm, so unaffected, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. And maybe to her, it was. But to me, it felt like a curveball I wasn't prepared to catch. She told me everything quickly afterward, trying to preempt any questions I might have. "We're just going to see some sights, eat some good food, and take it easy," she explained. "You know how much I've always wanted to visit Boston. And Ethan's the perfect travel buddy. He's so good at planning trips like this." Her words were meant to reassure me, but they had the opposite effect. The more she talked about it, the more uneasy I felt. This isn't their first trip together, after all. They've taken a day trip to Raleigh before, just the two of them. It's about a 2-hour drive from our college, and at the time, I didn't think much of it. It's just Raleigh, I had told myself. Nothing to worry about. But now, in the context of this longer trip, that day feels like a test run, proof that they could spend time together away from campus without any problems. And maybe that's exactly what it was. But it doesn't make this new trip any easier to accept. She says they're perfect travel buddies, and I believe that she believes it. Ethan has a way of making things easy for her. He's spontaneous in a way I'm not, always coming up with fun ideas and putting plans into motion. She's told me before how much she admires that about him. "He's the kind of person who just makes things happen," she once said, her voice full of appreciation. And maybe that's part of the problem. He offers her something I don't, and while I know I can't be everything to her, it's hard not to feel like I'm competing in a race I didn't sign up for. Then there are my friends. Their opinions are relentless, and they're not holding back. "Are you seriously okay with this?" one of them asked me the other day. "They're spending 5 days alone together. That's not normal." Another friend chimed in with a warning. "She might not have bad intentions, but he definitely does. Don't be naive." I don't want to let their words get to me, but it's hard not to when they're echoing my own fears. 5 days is a long time to be alone with someone, especially someone who once had feelings for you. Even if those feelings are gone, or so she says, the intimacy of traveling together can bring things to the surface. My friends think I'm being too trusting. They say I should be more assertive, that I should put my foot down and tell her how I really feel. But what would that accomplish? I don't want to be the controlling boyfriend who tells her what she can and can't do. That's not who I am. And besides, she's been nothing but honest with me. She's told me everything, maybe not right away, but she's told me. Isn't that worth something? Deep down, I don't think she'll do anything to betray me. I believe in her loyalty, in the love we've built together. But it's not her I'm worried about. It's him. Ethan has always been a wild card, someone I can't quite read. He's polite to me when he has to be, but there's always an edge to his demeanor, a subtle undercurrent of hostility. He doesn't like me, and he doesn't hide it very well. I've caught the looks he gives me when he thinks no one's watching, the way his jaw tightens whenever I show up unexpectedly. He may have accepted that she chose me, but that doesn't mean he's happy about it. And then there's the way he talks about her. When we've been in the same room together, I've overheard snippets of their conversations. He compliments her in ways that feel personal. "You have such a great eye for detail," he said once, after she showed him a sketch she'd been working on. "You could do anything with that talent." It's not the words themselves that bother me, it's the tone. There's an intimacy in the way he speaks to her, a familiarity that feels exclusive to them. My friends think this trip is a disaster waiting to happen. "You're playing with fire," one of them told me bluntly. Even if nothing happens, the fact that she's okay with this should tell you something. I've tried to defend her, to explain that she's not like that, but their skepticism is hard to ignore. They keep planting seeds of doubt, and no matter how hard I try to uproot them, they just keep growing. I'm trying to stay grounded, to focus on what I know instead of what I fear. Right now, there's nothing to suggest that anything will happen between them. They've spent time alone together before, and she's always come back to me with nothing but love and affection. She's never given me a reason to doubt her, and I want to keep trusting her. But trust isn't always easy. It's fragile, like glass, and once it's cracked, it's hard to put back together. So here I am, caught between my instincts and my insecurities. I want to believe that everything will be fine, that this trip is just a trip and nothing more. But the truth is, I don't know what to think. I'm trying to take things one day at a time, to focus on the love we share and the life we're building together. But there's a part of me that can't shake the feeling that this trip will change something, maybe not between them, but between us. Should I be worried, or am I overthinking again? I keep telling myself that I'm good, that there's no reason to panic. But the doubt lingers, a shadow I can't quite escape. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. Or maybe my friends are right. Only time will tell, but until then, I'm left with nothing but questions. Should I still be worried, or am I good? That's the question I keep asking myself, over and over again, as if the answer is hiding somewhere between the words. I think I'm good at least, that's what I keep telling myself. She hasn't given me a solid reason to doubt her, and I don't want to let my insecurities ruin what we have. But the voices of everyone around me are louder than ever. My friends, my gut, and even that little voice in the back of my head, they all seem to have their doubts. I've replayed every conversation, every reassurance, every laugh, and shared moment between the three of us, trying to find some clarity. And yet, I'm no closer to an answer than I was before. On paper, nothing has changed. She's still honest with me, still kind and thoughtful, still the woman I fell in love with. But the context has shifted. Her friendship with Ethan, once just a small quirk of our relationship, now feels like a thread that's slowly unraveling the fabric of my trust. Here's the thing, love isn't just about trust. It's about boundaries, too. It's about knowing where the lines are and respecting them, not just for the sake of the relationship, but for the sake of the people in it. And I'm starting to wonder if our lines are drawn in the same places. To her, this is all normal. A best friend is a best friend, and the time she spends with Ethan is just an extension of that. To me, it's something more complicated. It's a question of balance, of priorities, of whether I'm okay being the boyfriend who comes second to a friendship that looks, to the outside world, like it might be something more. I've tried to bring it up with her, subtly at first and then more directly. Each time, she brushes off my concerns with a calmness that's both reassuring and frustrating. You have nothing to worry about, she says. You're the one I love. And I believe her. But love doesn't always erase doubt. Sometimes, it amplifies it. Because the stakes are higher. Because the fear of losing what you have can make you see threats where there might not be any. Ethan, for his part, hasn't changed much. He's still as distant with me as ever, polite but detached, like he's tolerating my presence for her sake. I've tried to meet him halfway, to bridge the gap between us, but he keeps his walls firmly in place. I don't know if it's because he doesn't like me or because he still has feelings for her. Maybe it's both. Either way, the tension between us is palpable, and it makes every interaction feel like a quiet battle for her attention. The trip to New York and Boston is fast approaching, and I can't help but feel like it's a turning point. I've thought about asking her not to go, about telling her how much it bothers me, but every time I rehearse the words in my head, they sound wrong. Controlling. Insecure. Like I don't trust her. And that's not the message I want to send. I want her to feel free, to make her own choices, to come back to me because she wants to, not because I've drawn a line in the sand. And yet, the fear lingers. Not fear of what she'll do, but fear of what this trip represents. If she and Ethan can spend 5 days together, exploring new cities, making memories, and deepening their bond, then where does that leave me? Am I just the boyfriend who's waiting on the sidelines, hoping that the game doesn't end in a way that shatters my heart? At the moment, I don't see anything that would suggest they'll do anything. I don't think she'd betray me. But doubt doesn't need evidence. It grows in the shadows, feeding on the unknown, twisting every small detail into something bigger, something darker. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that the question isn't whether I should trust her, it's whether I can trust myself to let go of these fears. In the end, love is a leap of faith. It's choosing to believe in someone even when the odds feel stacked against you. It's deciding that the connection you share is worth the risk of being hurt. And as much as this situation scares me, as much as it stirs up all my insecurities, I know that I want to take that leap. Because she's worth it. Because what we have is worth it. So, I've made my decision. I'm going to let her go on this trip. I'm going to trust her, not because I don't have doubts, but because I do. Because trust isn't about being certain, it's about being brave enough to choose love over fear. And maybe that's what this whole thing is really about. Not about her and Ethan, but about me. About learning to face my own insecurities and not letting them dictate the terms of our relationship. Many people have expressed disagreement with me. My friends think I'm making a mistake, that I'm being naive or blind to the reality of the situation. Maybe they're right. Or maybe they're wrong. Only time will tell. But for now, I'm choosing to believe in her, in us, and in the possibility that love can withstand even the murkiest of circumstances. This isn't the end of the story, it never is, not with love. It's just another chapter, another step on a journey that's as uncertain as it is beautiful. I think I'm good for the moment. I really do. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that moments are fleeting. And in the end, all we can do is hold on to the ones that matter and hope that they'll carry us through the storms ahead.